Have you ever walked into a room and suddenly forgotten why you went there? Maybe you opened your phone to do something important, only to stare at the screen wondering what it was. Or perhaps you've been in the middle of a conversation and lost your train of thought halfway through a sentence. If you're over 50, moments like these can feel unsettling. Many people immediately ask themselves the same frightening question. Is this normal aging? Or is something wrong with my brain? The fear is understandable. We hear so much about memory loss, cognitive decline, and dementia that even small lapses can trigger worry. But what many people describe after 50 isn't always memory loss in the traditional sense. Often it's something much harder to explain, a strange mental cloudiness, a feeling that your mind isn't operating the way it used to, a sense that you're thinking through mud instead of clear air. Many people call it brain fog. But here's the problem. The phrase brain fog sounds mild, sounds temporary. It sounds like something you can simply sleep off. Yet for millions of adults over 50, the experience feels much deeper than that. Today we're going to talk about what brain fog really feels like after 50, why it can be so frustrating, and what your brain may be trying to tell you. And you may discover that what you're experiencing is far more common than you think. One of the biggest misconceptions about brain fog is that it only affects memory. In reality, many people can remember important life events perfectly well. They remember birthdays, addresses, family stories, names from decades ago. The problem isn't always memory storage. The problem often feels like access. Imagine having a library filled with books. The books are still there, but the librarian is suddenly slower. Finding the right book takes longer. Retrieving information feels delayed. That's how many adults describe brain fog. The information exists somewhere in the mind. It just doesn't arrive when needed. You know the word. You know the name. You know the answer. But it feels stuck behind a wall. A few minutes later, it suddenly appears. Sometimes hours later, sometimes not until the next day. That delay can be deeply frustrating, especially for people who have spent their lives being sharp, organized, and mentally quick. Many adults over 50 describe another experience that doesn't get discussed enough: mental fatigue. Not physical tiredness, mental tiredness. You wake up in the morning. You slept reasonably well. Your body feels okay, yet your brain already feels exhausted. Simple tasks require more effort. Concentrating on an article becomes harder. Following complex conversations feels draining. Making decisions feels heavier than it used to. By afternoon, your mind feels overloaded, almost as if you've been solving difficult problems all day, even when you haven't. This type of fatigue can be confusing. People often assume they are becoming lazy, less motivated, less disciplined. But many experts believe that brain fog frequently involves changes in how efficiently the brain is processing information. The brain may still be capable. It simply isn't operating at the same speed or efficiency. And that difference can create a constant sense of mental strain. Another common feeling is what many people call mental buffering. Think about a computer that pauses for a moment before opening a file. It eventually works. But there's a delay. Many adults notice this in conversations. Someone asks a question. You know the answer. Yet there's a brief pause before the response arrives. The delay might only last a few seconds, but you notice it. And because you notice it, you start worrying. The worry often makes things worse. Now you're monitoring every word, every forgotten detail, every pause. Instead of focusing on the conversation itself, you're evaluating your own performance. That creates stress. And stress is one of the biggest contributors to mental cloudiness. The more anxious you become about your brain, the harder your brain often has to work. One of the most surprising aspects of brain fog is how inconsistent it can be. Some days you feel completely normal, sharp, focused, quick. Then the next day feels entirely different. You lose words, forget appointments, misplace objects, struggle to focus. This inconsistency can be frightening. Many people wonder, if my brain is okay, why do I feel so different from one day to the next? The answer may lie in the fact that brain function is influenced by many factors. sleep, stress, inflammation, blood sugar, physical activity, hydration, medications, hormonal changes. Even small fluctuations in these areas can affect mental clarity. That's why some days feel surprisingly good while others feel frustratingly difficult. Your brain doesn't operate in isolation. It responds to what's happening throughout the body. Many adults over 50 also describe a feeling that is harder to put into words. They say, "I don't feel like myself." Not because they've forgotten who they are. Not because they can't function, but because thinking feels different. The mental ease they once relied on seems harder to access. Tasks that used to feel automatic now require concentration. Multitasking becomes more difficult. Learning new technology takes longer. Remembering small details requires effort. Over time, this can affect confidence. People begin doubting themselves. They hesitate before speaking. They second-guess decisions. They withdraw from situations where they fear appearing forgetful. The emotional impact can be significant, because brain fog doesn't just affect thinking. It affects identity. Many people have spent decades trusting their minds. When that trust feels shaken, even slightly, it can create anxiety. Let's talk about something important. Brain fog and dementia are not the same thing. This distinction matters. Many people immediately jump to worst-case scenarios. But occasional forgetfulness, slower processing, and mental fatigue can have many causes. In fact, some causes are surprisingly reversible. Poor sleep, chronic stress, nutritional deficiencies, medication side effects, blood sugar fluctuations, lack of exercise, dehydration, even prolonged periods of emotional strain. These factors can affect mental clarity dramatically. That doesn't mean you should ignore persistent symptoms. If cognitive changes are concerning, worsening, or interfering with daily life, it's important to discuss them with a healthcare professional. But it also means that not every episode of brain fog automatically signals serious cognitive disease. And that's an important reminder. Sleep deserves special attention. Many adults underestimate how deeply sleep affects the brain. After 50, sleep patterns often change. Some people wake up more frequently. Others sleep fewer hours. Some struggle with sleep apnea without realizing it. When sleep quality declines, the brain often pays the price. Tension decreases. Memory becomes less reliable. Processing speed slows. Focus weakens. Mental fatigue increases. It's difficult to feel mentally sharp when the brain isn't getting the recovery it needs. Think of sleep as overnight maintenance for the brain. Without sufficient maintenance, performance naturally suffers. Another major factor is chronic stress. Stress isn't just an emotional experience. It's also a biological one. When stress remains elevated for long periods, the brain shifts into a protective mode. Resources are directed toward survival. Attention becomes fragmented. Mental energy becomes depleted. Concentration becomes harder. Many adults over 50 are carrying significant stress. Financial concerns, aging parents, health issues, retirement planning, family responsibilities, grief, life transitions. The cumulative effect can be substantial. Sometimes what feels like cognitive decline is actually a brain that has been operating under pressure for far too long. Physical movement also plays a larger role than many people realize. The brain relies on healthy blood flow. It depends on oxygen, nutrients, circulation. Regular movement helps support these processes. Many people notice that their thinking becomes clearer after a walk. Not because exercise magically solves everything, but because the brain often functions better when the body is active. Even modest activity can support mental performance. The goal isn't becoming an athlete. The goal is helping the brain receive what it needs to function effectively. Nutrition matters too. The brain is one of the most energy-demanding organs in the body. It requires a steady supply of nutrients to operate properly. When nutrition becomes unbalanced, mental clarity can suffer. Blood sugar spikes and crashes may contribute to feelings of fogginess. Inadequate intake of certain vitamins and minerals can affect cognitive performance. Hydration also matters. Even mild dehydration can impact concentration and attention. Yet many adults don't immediately connect these factors to brain function. They simply notice that they feel mentally off. Or here's something encouraging. Many people who experience brain fog assume they have no control over it. But that's often not true. The brain remains remarkably adaptable throughout life. Small improvements in sleep, stress management, physical activity, nutrition, hydration, mental engagement. These changes may not produce overnight miracles, but they can help create an environment where the brain performs more effectively. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is improvement. Even modest gains in clarity can make daily life feel easier. Perhaps the most important thing to understand is this. You are not alone. Millions of adults over 50 experience moments of mental cloudiness, moments of forgetfulness, moments when words seem farther away than they used to, moments when concentration feels harder. The experience can be frustrating. It can be confusing, and sometimes it can be frightening. But understanding what's happening is often the first step toward reducing that fear. Because brain fog is more than simply forgetting where you put your keys. It's more than forgetting a name for a moment. It's a complex experience that can involve mental fatigue, slower processing, reduced focus, and a feeling of disconnection from your usual mental sharpness. And while aging can play a role, many other factors can contribute as well. The good news is that mental clarity is influenced by many things that can often be improved. Your brain is not a machine that suddenly stops working at 50. It's a living system that responds to how you sleep, move, eat, manage stress, and care for your overall health. So if you've been experiencing brain fog, try not to assume the worst. Pay attention. Stay curious. Support your health. And seek professional guidance if symptoms are persistent or concerning. Because sometimes what feels like a sign of inevitable decline may actually be your brain asking for support. And listening to that message could make a bigger difference than you think. If this video helped you understand brain fog a little better, let us know in the comments. Have you ever walked into a room and forgotten why you were there? Have you noticed moments when your mind felt unusually cloudy? Your experience may help someone else realize they're not alone. And remember, growing older doesn't mean giving up on mental clarity. It means learning how to support the incredible brain that has carried you through a lifetime of experiences. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
Before we conclude, a quick reminder. The information shared in this video is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this channel. Your health is your most valuable asset. Treat it with the professional care it deserves.